April meeting of the Jackson City Schools Board of Education order. Roll call, please.
Mr. McDonald.
Present.
Mr. Moore. Smith.
I'm here. Thank you. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, kids.
Need a approval of the agenda.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Ms. Harless.
Yes.
Ms. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. McDonald.
Yes.
Dr. Morris.
Yes.
Mr. Moore.
Yes. And I need an approval of the minutes, please.
Second.
Ms. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Moore.
Morris. Doctor did that.
Yes.
Dr. Morris.
Yes.
Ms. Harless.
Yes.
Mr. McDonald.
Yes. There's no one signed up for public participation, so with that, we'll move on to the consent agenda and turn it over to Mr. Howard.
Okay, I was having some issues with my iPad, so I'm going to go old school. We'll be using the paper version this evening. It's recommended that the board approve a list of resignations. Amy Cook, Caitlin Colson, Jennifer Evans, Jenny Johnson, Philip Kuhn for the positions as noted. Most of you have probably already heard that Mr. Kuhn accepted a position as a superintendent for Gallia County. He couldn't be here this evening, but you probably saw his resignation, and he wanted me to pass along how grateful he was to have served the Jackson City School for all of the years that I think he's been at Southview for 16 years or 17 years as principal. So we hate to see him go, but we always like to see our people have the opportunity to move up, and he's done a great job for us, so congratulations to Mr. Kuhn. Item B is a recommendation to approve Anna Siders and Stacy Tolley as new teachers for next year. Anna is here in the room. Stacy couldn't be here with us this evening. Anna will be teaching here at Jackson High School, and she will be teaching in the science arena. Stacy will be our new, well, what we always called home economics, but it's now family and consumer science. And she comes from actually River Valley, so Mr. Kuhn will be hunting for a new home ec teacher down there. Item C is a recommendation to approve a list of classified continuing contracts, and those are all bus drivers, as you can see. Item D is a recommendation to approve classified 2-year contracts for the individuals as noted. Item E is a recommendation to employ a list of exempted personnel for the length of contracts as noted. Item F is a recommendation to approve employment of 047 classified employees. And I don't think you want me to read through all of those names there, but item G is a recommendation to employ Alex Clayton and Joshua Cutright as substitute teachers for the remainder of this school year. Item H is a recommendation to approve a list of substitute teachers for the next school year. It's never too early to get started finding substitute teachers. Item I is a recommendation to employ secondary classified personnel. And again, there's a whole host of individuals there for the positions as noted. Item J is a recommendation to employ classified subs for the remainder of this school year. Actually, Robert Burton is the only one on there. Item K is a recommendation to employ classified subs for the next school year. And again, there's a page and a half of those individuals. Item L is a recommendation to non-renew or not reemploy a list of individuals for next year. And I always say this, that this does not necessarily reflect that these individuals have done anything wrong. Lots of times we have to, for contract purposes, non-renew individuals. Sometimes we have to post them for the other union to be able to have the opportunity to bid on. In this case here, these people are all 047 unit members. These are our short hour people. And later on in the meeting here, we're going to approve a new contract with OPSI 047. And that's part of the reason that a lot of these people are on here. Many of these people will be hired back in the same capacity. Some won't. As you know, we hired a lot of people at the beginning of the year for things like cleaning positions, and hopefully we won't need any of those extra people, but maybe if we do, we won't need as many. So a lot of those people were told when they were hired that that could be temporary. So we will non-renew those individuals tonight and then make a determination at a later date and time as to how many of these people we need to call back. Item M is a recommendation to approve supplemental contracts. Item N is a recommendation to approve Kendall Neal as a volunteer in the athletic department. Item O, recommendation to approve payment in lieu of vacation for Mr. Kuhn. Item P is a recommendation to approve an amended Associate Technology Coordinator salary schedule. Item Q is a recommendation to approve an amendment to the elementary handbook. Item R, recommendation to approve policy updates from the last board meeting that you were given. Item S is a recommendation to authorize the administrative staff to develop budgets for all of those areas that you see listed there. Item T is a recommendation to accept a grant and for us to start an Ohio Arts Council grant. That's what the fund would be called. Item U is a recommendation to, this is our, I believe for our robot grant.
Yeah, this is for the robots.
Robot grant, to accept that money and to create that fund. Item V is a recommendation to approve the Ohio Safety Training Grant Fund. Item W is a recommendation to create a fund known as the General Mills JHS Library Grant. Item X is to create a fund for known as the General Mills Elementary School Spring Activities Grant. Item Y is a recommendation for the board to proclaim May 3rd through the 7th as Teacher Appreciation Week. And I believe, Mr. McDonald, that concludes the consent agenda.
Any board members have any questions or any items that need removed?
No.
Separate consideration. If not, I need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Morris,
Yes.
Mrs. Harless,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald.
Yes. And we'll move on to new business now, and there's a few items there, Mr. Howard, to discuss.
All right, item A is a recommendation to accept the resignation of Scott Lowe, effective June 30th, 2021, and to reemploy Mr. Lowe as the Director of Special Services under a new 3-year contract effective July 2nd, 2021. This is a process that's been, you've noticed it's been on the agenda for the last 3 or 4 months. When you do the retire, rehire, there's a lot of hoops that you're required to jump through. I do want to point out that this is a savings to the district, that Mr. Lowe will be coming back for less than 75% of what he was normally being paid, so it's kind of a win-win. The district will be saving some money, and we have the same person performing the same work, same number of days in the contract, and same number of hours. So, I guess we need a motion to vote on that.
Yeah.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Dr. Moore?
Yes.
Morris, sorry. Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Ms. Harless?
Yes.
And next item.
Item B is a recommendation to employ an elementary principal. We posted Mr. Kuhn's position internally, had 7 or 8 highly qualified candidates in the district. It's a good problem to have for me. After the interviews, I've decided to recommend that we employ Heather Michael as the new principal at Southview Elementary under a new 2-year contract.
Need a motion and a second. So
I'll make
moved.
the motion. Second. Whichever.
Who made the motion?
Give it to him.
Dr. Moore? Okay. Dr. Morris?
Yes.
Ms. Harless?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes, although I'd like to see her stay where she is because she's done such a wonderful job down there.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Item C is a recommendation to ratify a 3-year negotiated agreement with OPSI 047, and really the big changes in that. This is our short hour people. The 2 major changes are that in the previous contract, those individuals could only work up to 25 hours per week. In the new contract, they can work up to 30 hours per week. And then we also added an attendance bonus, because the other 2 unions have the opportunity to earn an attendance bonus. So that makes them on the same playing level as our 046 union and our JCEA union. And earlier, when we non-renewed that whole list of individuals, one of the things that I think needs to be pointed out is that when you go from people being able to work 25 hours a week to people being able to work 30 hours per week, you no longer need the same amount of people, because there's only so many hours in a day that you need to cover. So part of that reason for non-renewing so many of those people was because going from 25 to 30 hours a week, we will be able to save some positions. It doesn't really save us any money because you're still paying the hourly rate, but it does keep us from having to have so many people on staff. And one thing that I like about that is that, for example, if we have an aide that is assigned to an individual student, one-on-one, under the old contract, they had to work less than 25 hours a week. So they could only work 4 of the 5 days a week. And on the 5th day, we had to have another person come and work with that student. That's not ideal because the students, in a lot of cases, need that consistency of the same person that they're used to. This will allow us to be able to have one person that's with that aide for all 5 days out of the week. So it benefits us. It also benefits the union, because now those people can work 30 hours a week as opposed to 25. So that's part of the reason that we non-renewed some of those people. And again, a lot of them will end up being hired back at a later point in time. So if I could have a motion to ratify a 3-year contract with 047.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Ms. Harless?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Dr. Morris?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Item D, not the governor came out with, I don't know if you call it actually a mandate, that every school district was to have a learning recovery and extended learning plan on file. It has to be on your district website, sent into ODE. There's another round of CARES money. I think they're using a different acronym this time. It's called ESSER for Elementary Secondary School Emergency Relief Funds. And we are going to receive nearly $3 million from that. And the purpose of that money is to make up for lost learning that the students have had in the past year. We did a needs assessment with all of our staff, and I shared that with you guys a couple of meetings ago, and then we pulled our administrative team together. We used that needs assessment from our teaching staff to develop our plan. And I want to thank Dr. Crabtree because she's the one who did all of the work and put this together for us. So I'm going to ask Deb can you come up here, Deb, and talk to us a little bit about this plan?
As Mr. Howard said, this was required by the governor and the State Department of Education. And as we started talking about this, we realized that we needed to ask the people in the buildings what they felt was needed. Our students, we are aware of how many of them are not engaging with us on a daily basis. We also know that there is lost learning, whether it happened from March, April, and May of last year, or whether it also has happened during this school year. So that's the purpose of this. It's the ESSER 2 money coming in. The ESSER 1 money, original money, was what much of that was used this year for making it possible for us to be in our buildings and be face-to-face. But this is ESSER 2, and it's all about learning. So I think that's why Mr. Howard asked if I would help with it, and I was happy to do that. When you look at this plan, it basically has a first and a second half. The first half is all about instruction, and the second half is all about social emotional needs, what children need to be successful. If you look in this plan, the first section, what I called pages 2 and 3, it's asking what kinds of things, how are we identifying these students? How are we identifying their needs? And then it also asks you how much are you going to spend out of the ESSER 2 money for this? Well, we've been identifying those needs since day one. So that's why where it says budget, it may have an NA there, because that's not coming out of this next round of money. We've been doing that probably since March 13th of last year. So after that, we go into the approaches to filling those gaps, those academic gaps, and that's where we asked back in February, we surveyed all of the teachers and administrative staff in the district, gave them a week to respond to an online survey, and they did. In fact, I was impressed by just how many responses we did get from all of the people who are working with these kids. But their answers that Mr. Howard shared with you were very clear. They want help. They want people, they want help, they want this money to be spent on getting some more people in there to work with the kids and to help them. So that's where we found with the responses that they had. And one of the pieces of this is that we start summer school this summer. As soon as school is out in May, we're going to have a week off, and then we're going to go right into a 4-week period of summer school, 5 days a week, 8 a.m. until noon. And the teachers are going to be working with these children that are identified. It may not be all of our kids, but it's the kids who are identified of needing somebody to help them fill this gap. So we're going to have those teachers, probably between 50 and 60 teachers. If you look in this budget, I budgeted for 50 teachers, but we already know, at least at the middle school, we're going to need more than what we had planned there. Our original thought was a reading teacher and a math teacher for every grade level. We've already realized many of those children have IEPs, so we're going to need some special needs teachers there too. But we've got a little wiggle room in here. We've budgeted for transportation, we've budgeted for pickup breakfast when the kids come in the building and a lunch for them to take home with them. We think that we can do a mid-morning snack and maybe have some kind of a social time for them to break up that 4-hour block. And I think that the kids who are there are going to be engaged in it and are going to be feeling very good about school, even though it's June. Also, when we go on down through here, you're going to see that one of the things that the teachers asked for was more help in their buildings. So at our 3 elementary buildings, we are budgeting for 2 more teachers. Those 2 teachers, I'm sure, will be focusing primarily on the lower grades, because that's where, if they haven't met the standards that they need, it's going to be a struggle all the way through. So we've built that in there also. If you go over to page 5, it's talking there about the summer learning. We have budgeted in here some of what we called health aides. Those are many of the people, though, that you're non-renewing tonight, and we may not be hiring them back, so that's where we're going to have a little bit of flexibility with the funding. We're not going to spend as much there, and that's going to allow us more money available for actual instruction and teachers. The next section is the approaches to identify social and emotional needs. Those are all the different things that we're seeing kids having difficulty with, and those are the things that are interfering with learning, and we've got to make the kids healthy and strong again. So one of the things that the elementary schools asked for was the guidance counselor. Once upon a time, we had elementary guidance counselors, but that is something we've lost along the way, and it's become critically important. So that's something that right away Mr. Howard's going to be out here looking for. More teachers, more counselors, and one of the things he's probably going to mention is, you know, right now this is 2 years. They're going to tell us that we're going to have this money for 2 years, and that's always kind of a tricky thing when you're the superintendent. Because when you hire these people, you want to promise them that they've got a job for a while. But we're already hearing that there's going to be around 3 of ESSER money. We've also been hearing that some of the things maybe that have been competitive grants may come out to be entitlement monies at some point. So we'll just wait and see.
This is meant to be kind of a shot in the arm, a boost in the arm for a couple of years to get the students back to where they were before the pandemic. So as Debbie said, we expect this money to be there for 2 years. And we have to be careful because you can't spend one-time money, right, Brenda, on fixed expenditures. And so,
Exactly.
So, you know, right now, the plan is that for sure, we would have these new teachers, 2 teachers at each of the 3 elementary buildings, 6 new teachers, 3 counselors, 1 at each of the elementary buildings, for at least the next 2 years. And then we'll go from there as to if we get additional funding, and we can look at keeping those positions longer. If not, people will know in advance that, you know, there's the potential that we can only afford this for a couple of years.
How have we gotten teachers? I mean, are we going to use some of our current teachers for this too, or is this all new hires?
Well, what'll have to happen is I'll have to post the positions. I don't really expect it, Mr. Murray's sitting back here, but I can't imagine that there'll be too many of our current teachers that would want to bid on a position that you know could only be a 2-year position. They could if they want and would be eligible for it, but I expect that probably most of these people will be filled from newly hired people, but it'll be posted internally for our people.
That's including the summer portion?
The summer portion we did a little bit differently. What we did, we just had our building principals survey their staff of anybody who wants to work in the summer, and then they will try to be able to accommodate as many people as wants to. We were concerned about having enough people for the summer because that's usually an issue. In fact, our collective bargaining agreement says that teachers are paid $25 per hour for tutoring. But we knew that in the summer, you know, teachers need a break too. I mean, it's been a long, hard year for everybody, and they need to refresh themselves and be ready to come back to start. We don't want them being worn out when we get ready to start back in August. So we have upped the compensation for the teachers that want to work in the summertime, and as a result, I don't know if it was because of that or what, but we have, right now, we have plenty of people that are wanting to do it. In fact, we're going to probably have to split it up in some cases. It's a four-week session, but there may be times where somebody wants to work 1 week, but they've already got a vacation scheduled, you know, to wherever the next week, and then we can plug somebody else in for that spot. So I have presented Mr. Murray, the union president, with a memorandum of understanding that shows that we will be paying, for the purpose of summer school only, the inflated rate per hour, and then after that, that will expire and we'll go back to following the regular contract. So, I mean, this is exciting that, you know, we're going to finally get, for me especially, the counselors at the elementary building. You know, when I came here, however many years, 13 or 14 years ago, it really wasn't that big a deal that we didn't have counselors at the elementary. But here in the last few years, I mean, we're seeing kids that are coming to us with all kinds of issues and problems, and so we really, really need that at the elementary level. I'm going to do everything I can that when this 2 years goes by, that at least for those elementary counselors, if possible, that we need to try to be able to keep those people on staff and make it clear that in a lot of cases, I think what's happened with counselors is that counselors have become test coordinators, and because there's so much testing that goes on, and so that got handed off to counselors to just do the testing, and they're not able to have the time to do the things that they really went to school for, to learn, to help counsel students. These new counseling positions will not be, and I'll make clear to our principals that they are not to be used for testing people. They're there to counsel and serve our kids. So at this time, I would like to ask that the board approve this learning recovery and extended learning plan and permit me to be able to make changes to it as necessary, because one of the things that the governor has said and ODE has said, this document is a living, breathing document, and we're going to have to make changes to it as we move forward. So if you guys would approve the plan as it is now, but allow me to be able to make the necessary changes as we go forward, I think that should take care of that.
All right, need a motion and a second?
So moved.
I'll second.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Harless?
Yes.
Dr. Morris?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes. And we'll move on to the financial report.
As presented.
Okay. Need a motion and a second to approve
So-
the financial report?
So moved.
I'll second.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Dr. Morris?
Yes.
Ms. Harless?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
And Mrs. Hill, you want to just, you want to briefly touch on the scholarship, or just go ahead and take a vote on it?
On the amended guidelines for
R-
the Dwight
Right,
Jones?
you might just hit on that just for a second.
The family had requested that the guidelines be changed on the Dwight W. Jones Family Memorial Scholarship in order to permit giving one $1,000 scholarship award annually.
And that used to be five $1,000
It was
scholarships,
five
correct?
$1,000 scholarships.
Okay. Everybody clear on that? Okay. Need a motion, if so, and a second to approve that?
So moved.
I'll second.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Harless?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Dr. Morris?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
All right, information discussion. We've got a couple items. Turn it back over to Mr. Howard.
Yeah, I don't know if you noticed or not tonight, but whenever you came in over on the other side of the building, the field house side, we are hosting or sponsoring a vaccination clinic this evening, and there's been a huge turnout. the last time I was in there, Thad, you might even know more now, but they were on about 150 people.
I think that's about where they finished at. Talking to Lindsay, she thought it was gonna end up being right around 160 total come through the night.
And so a lot of those were our students, because that was made available to 16 and 17-year-old students and any of the families, as well as just people in general in the community. So it was a really nice turnout. I suspect that we will probably be offering another one here in, I don't know, 21 or 28 days, or depending upon which vaccination they used, to allow people to come back and get their second dose of that. So I want to thank the health department for partnering with us on that, trying to get as many people as we can in our community and in our schools vaccinated.
What kind were they giving?
Pfizer.
They had two. They had Pfizer set aside for the students. They weren't giving Pfizer to any of the adults. That way, they made sure they had enough for any student, and then the Moderna.
I think there were some people who were coming for their second dose of Moderna this evening. So the next thing, and I asked Mr. Haynes to come and talk just a moment about prom and graduation. I mean, we've been talking about this for months, and everything keeps changing from day to day. There's recently, I know, at least since the last time we had a board meeting, there's new guidance that has come about since then. So, Mr. Haynes.
Yeah, it's a fluid situation, as it's been all year long. Last Wednesday on our professional development day, somewhere around 2:30, 3 o'clock, that previous Monday, the governor had said he was giving out simplified, updated health orders. Those health orders came out Wednesday, and they were sent to us by ODE, specifically addressing proms and graduation. We had previously been working, that's Jackson High School administration, Mrs. Parks, the prom coordinator, been working with the stay-at-home committee, and we kind of modified the plans a little bit based on the new guidance. It's still going to be a twofold part. We're going to be hosting the walkthrough, the traditional walkthrough ceremony, and this is all going to happen on May 15th. And then the stay-at-home committee will be doing dance and stay-at-home type activities at the park's edge, so that the students will be able to have those more traditional type activities and the stay-at-home activities all on one site. They will be doing that down there. We're going to be hosting the walkthrough, and that'll be on May 15th. And we're hoping, crossing our fingers, weather permitting, we'll be able to hold it in the stadium, which will allow us an increased capacity to allow family and people to attend and watch that. We are, of course, gentlemen, going to be live streaming that as usual, so that anybody that can attend in person will be able to do that. If the weather is inclement, we will have to move it inside, so that will change things a bit, because we anticipate somewhere around 150, 160 couples. You're looking at 300 plus kids, so that makes viewing that in person much more difficult when you're talking about inside. But we are still a month away from that, so we're starting to stay fluid and stay flexible in our plans for that. But this is our plan as of today. We will host the walkthrough, and our stay-at-home committee will be hosting dance and after-prom activities at the park's edge.
What time will the walkthrough start?
We are going to probably start that an hour earlier than normal. We usually start it at 7 o'clock. We're going to start that at 6 o'clock. Because of the size of the stadium, it's going to take a little bit longer to get people through, get them through that, because we're going to use seating on both sides of the stadium, and we'll stage it so they're going to come in like they would for down in the corner during a football game. They'll have an opportunity to walk to the visitor side, then walk to the home side before exiting the stadium.
Thank you.
As far as graduation goes, again, we are hoping that that is outside. Updated guidance on the outside venue is suggesting that you do use digital ticketing to control the venue. And we've worked with Mr. Stevens on that through the hometown ticketing, so there's no cost for those type of tickets for our families. But they are saying that you need to set people in 10-person pods, and those pods have to be 6 feet apart. So that's the guidance we're working under now, and our hope is that we'll be able to have it outside, utilize as much of the stadium as we can, and to provide as many tickets as possible for the students and their families.
The guidelines are a little bit deceiving, because now they're saying basically that there's no limit for an outside venue but yet you're still expected to keep people in these 10-person pods and 6 feet between the next group. So I
There
don't
is
know
a
how you
limit.
police that stuff, but, we'll do the best
Yeah.
that we can with it. We're
And then-
hoping that graduation will end up looking pretty normal. I mean, we may end up doing what you said about the prom walkthrough and changing the configuration up there to where the kids are in the end zone and we use both sides of the bleachers or something. That way we can accommodate more pods of 10.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's our initial thoughts right now, is to use as much of the stadium as possible in those pods of 10, 6 feet apart as per the requirements, probably seated on the end of the or on the end zone end of the stadium where the band would sit, not in those bleachers, but on the field. And then that way, as the spectators are facing or watching the students, they also have a view of our video board where things will be live streamed for more of a close-up view of things. And that's going to increase the capacity, to as much as possible there. And I think I'd mentioned before, we've not had an inside ceremony for a while, and hopefully we won't yet.
Please, don't
Okay,
jinx it.
but we would recess if we had it inside, and in order to have control on the field, we would recess back to the field house with the students, so there would not be the mass of people coming to the field after the ceremony. So the end of the ceremony would look a little different, even though it is outside. And as always, we're going to make accommodations for people that need access via wheelchairs and those kind of things. For more field level, we'll have places set aside for them so that they will have access and the ability to not have to go up into the bleachers.
Now, normally our graduation, when we have our practice that day, we pass out tickets to students in case we have to come inside. In this case, if we have to come inside, that's going to be a problem, a huge problem. So what I've noticed that some people are doing now is they have their normal graduation date, and they've actually, in order to be able to try to make sure to have it outside, they've set another date.
I agree.
So, at
Friday,
least
Saturday.
yeah,
Yep.
have it Friday. If it's pouring down the rain,
Yeah,
we're coming back and doing it Saturday. Now, I don't know what you do when you get into where we get a monsoon for 4 days or something, but at least you have a second option, I think.
I agree with that 100%.
There's some options that we can take a look at as we
So I
get
think
closer to the
that's
day.
what we will do is our graduation is always on that Friday evening. That will be our hope to get it in on that Friday evening. If not, if weather causes havoc, then we'll try to get it in on Saturday because we want to be able to try to allow as many people to come as possible to graduation. If we have to have an inside graduation, there's going to be a lot of people that's not going to be able to come. We're going to be back to like ball games and you get 1 ticket or 2 tickets or something. So, but we'll do the best we can. Any questions for Mr. Haynes? Thank you, Mr. Haynes.
All right, we'll move on, closing items by board members. I'd just like to say, I'd like to congratulate Ms. Siders on your new appointment, and Mrs. Michael on your new appointment, and also like to thank your 2 children for leading the Pledge of Allegiance, because we haven't had anything like that for a while, so appreciate that. And one more thing, Mr. Murray, congratulations on the addition to your family, had a son.
He said he's not getting much sleep.
Yeah.
Is that who was snoring back there?
And
What did you name him?
any other items from other board members on
I have something.
this? Smith?
Mr. Howard, would you ask one of our school resource officers, or maybe all of them, however many we have, to come and present to us a program telling us what they do?
Sure.
I'd like to know if they have developed a program that works with the at-risk student, which would give that child someone to look up to. Do they take them on a trip maybe to McDonald's? Let's have a hamburger and french fries, talk a little bit. I just went to the funeral home to pay respects to a former student of mine, and his 3 sons were there. And that's the saddest thing I think I've ever seen. Those boys are going to need somebody to look up to. Now's the perfect opportunity for those guys those gentlemen to make an impression on those three boys and do something with the at-risk kids here at the school.
Now, I do know that Officer Lusk is retiring, so we will be looking to replace him, and he's done a fantastic job.
That's hard to
gonna-
replace.
That's not going to be an easy replacement. There's some big shoes to fill there. So I know that Sheriff Frazier has been working with myself and Mr. Haynes on coming up with, because it really needs to be a certain type of person to be able to do that. So we're working hard at trying to find the right person to be our resource officer for the high school here next year. But
Yes, I agree with you, it does. And you've got good candidates to look at.
anything else?
If not, if no other items, this time, we're going to move into executive session. There's no reason for anyone to stick around unless you just want to. We're not going to make any, take any action on anything to discuss some personnel issues.
Need a motion?
Motion and a second to move into executive session.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Ms. Harless?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
No,
Dr. Morris?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Thank you for coming.
Yep, thank you.